I've been talking a lot about minimalism here lately and creating minimalist spaces and kind of my minimalist journey. But I think that it's always important that we bring things back to combining the living with less with a holistic, supportive aspect. I mean, if you've been here long, I say my whole spiel at the beginning of every video that I talk about holistic, clutter-free spaces. There's a reason for that. I think that being overly focused on just less can leave you with something lacking. And that's never what the goal is. The goal isn't to have empty, barren, lacking spaces, right? We want to have spaces that are supportive to us, and the process of moving toward living with less is a part of that supportive home space system. So today I want to share how you can create supportive, quote, minimalist spaces inside of your home. A big shout out to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. Without sponsors like FlexiSpot, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. For those of you who are new here, like I said, my name is Danielle, and I chat all about holistic and clutter-free spaces. So if that's something you're into, be sure to click subscribe and turn on those notifications. I release new videos every Tuesday. Now, stick around to the end because I'm going to be revealing my minimalist boho themed nursery. Finally, I know we've been working on it for a really long time, and I have 9 weeks left in this pregnancy. And actually, by the time you see this, I think we're going to be down to 8 weeks already. I'm going to show you how I've also been using all of the tools and all of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video about how to create a supportive minimalist space inside of our nursery, and that you can really rinse and repeat these principles in literally any room in your home. It really all comes down to creating a space that is functional for you, right? But there's not just one type of functionality. I think a lot of times we focus in on just one type of functionality, like items functionality, like can I get use out of this thing? And really functionality is much broader than that. And keep in mind, everybody's needs are different. So there's never one size fits all. So let's go ahead and dive in. Number one is movement. Our bodies have to move. They have to expel energy. And so I think that movement is one of the kind of no-brainer principles of creating a space that's supportive to you. You don't want to have decor items or furniture that's in the natural flow of traffic or the natural path that you're going to be wanting to take to get from point A to point B or to achieve whatever your functional goal is inside of your space. So planning out your movement inside of each space and even each zone within each space in your home is really crucial to creating a spot that's going to be supportive to you. So for example, I've shared how in my own living room, I've chosen not to have a coffee table or any large pieces of furniture in the center of the living room. And that's because for me, I like to be able to do my yoga, floor stretches, play with Charlie, like all of that stuff in the center of the floor. And I really like having that open space. I don't want to have to walk around things. We're already working with kind of a small square footage here in our condo. And so I like having just a small, movable little table instead of having a large coffee table. That works for me, having a big empty space in the middle of the floor. Now, for somebody else, it might be a core functionality that you do have a coffee table there, or that you do have a chair that's easily accessible as soon as you walk into the room. That might be a part of your plan for your space in order to plan for how you move and what type of physical support you need when you're in that space. Movement is one of those core functionality pieces that is at the top of the list, whether you are living in a giant mansion or a tiny house or an RV. In fact, probably the smaller space that you're working with, the more you're going to have to consider how you need to move and what type of physical functionality you need for that space. Number two is community. Or lack of community, whatever your situation is. Do you have a big family? Do you have a lot of pets? Do you have a lot of friends that come over for social events? Or in my case, game nights, because we are huge nerds over here and we love strategy board games. We have 2 teenagers, myself, Matt, Charlie, our pup, we have a baby on the way, and we have friends that we like to host for game nights. So all of those pieces are considered when we think about the functionality of our spaces, the types of furniture we need, how we want to lay out and position the furniture that we have. So for us, the dining room is really huge when it comes to hanging out or playing games or just like spending time together. We always eat dinner together as a family. So having the space and the cleared dining table that we can all sit at And having a dining table that's large enough that it can also double as a game table is something that's really important to us. When it comes to the living room, I like to have spaces to where we're looking at each other. We have a level of comfort, you're able to lounge a little bit, but you can also sit and chat and everybody's not just facing the TV or facing some off direction. So that's what works for us. Now for you, your community might consist of just yourself, right? Like you might live in a studio apartment in downtown New York and your needs are going to be very different. Your space is going to look very different and the support that you need from each zone in your space is going to be very different than it will for me. Number 3 is comfort. I think that a big thing with finding the perfect balance of, just holistic and support and feeling good inside of your space is finding that line between functionality and comfort. A lot of people will try to swing one way or another, like I want all the style. I don't care about the comfort as long as it looks good. Or I don't care about style. I just want to be able to sit in my cozy fat lounger and it's like, got materials falling off of it because it's comfortable, right? I personally think that the most supportive space for all of the things that we're going to be talking about today, from functionality to the energy that you gain from your space to the moods that your space can evoke and the confidence, all of these different things, is to find a balance between the functionality and the comfort. So between the movement and the flow of your space and how comfortable and cozy and connected you feel being in the space. So when we're talking about comfort, we're talking about things like texture, things that are going to be supportive for you to sit in. So maybe you need to invest a little bit of extra money into something that's going to support your tailbone if you don't have a lot of padding, or, something that's going to be a little more orthopedic or ergonomic because you maybe have back pain or have knee pain. And building in those comforts is going to be huge to you in your daily life satisfaction. But it could be something as simple as just having a comfortable bed to sleep in that you can really get cozy and feel like, I can just let go of the day. If you're really sleek, then you'll find ways to merge the comfort and style. So maybe having a nice soft throw blanket that really accentuates the room, but also just feels so good whenever you want to hang out on the couch. And again, I know we're talking about minimalist supportive spaces, so it's not all about bringing in more things, but it's more about being intentional about the things that are already there or the things that you do bring in. Number 4 is creativity. We as humans have a creative part of our brain. So even if you think that you're not a creative or artistic person, you may be a very analytical and scientific person and you're really creative about that, So I think that we all have some sort of creative outlet that we need to be able to express and dig into. It helps for our brain growth, our mental growth, and it just helps to kind of sustain our energy and our happiness. We plan a lot into babies and kids and making sure that they have some mental stimulation and tactile stimulation and ways to be creative. And then we kind of sometimes think that we don't need or deserve that anymore when we become adults. And I don't think that that's true. I think that a beautiful way to go about this, and the way that I choose to do it inside of my space, is to integrate the creativity into and throughout the space itself. So we don't always have to have like designated zones for everything. Like, this is my creative spot or my creative closet. It's okay if you do, and if that works out for you, then that's great. But it can also be great just to integrate and disperse all of these things together to where each zone in your home is a little piece of yourself. Number 5, plan for your productivity. This is how we grow and how we share things with the world and how we find purpose oftentimes in, connecting to the things that we want to invest our mental energy into. So there are so many different things that we can be productive about or with. You can be productive around your home. You can be productive in your job. You can be productive in your schoolwork and just continued growth and learning. But it is important that we feel like we're accomplishing something sometimes, because that's just how our brains are made. This is the left side of our brain. So again, this is going to look different depending on what types of productivity you're investing yourself into. For me, it usually is work related. And so I have little pop-up offices throughout my house. We have one in the bedroom. We have one right behind me. There's one that I've been kind of sneaking and using in Gracie's room that I'll share a little bit about in a bit. And I used to have one down in the garage. So anywhere where I feel like I can bring in a different bit of inspiration, or maybe the light is hitting differently in this area. And so I just feel more inspired working in that area. For me, that works. Being able to have a variety of zones to choose from, that I have natural lighting. I love working next to windows. I find it really hard to work in cavernous types of spaces. It makes me want to veg out or take a nap, and it just makes me feel kind of gloomy. For me, planning my productive spaces means having blank space. It doesn't mean bringing in more office supplies like it might mean for you or for some other people. So when you're planning for your productive spaces, you need to think, what area do you work the best and what types of work are you going to be doing? So if you're a stay-at-home mom and your productivity is more moving around and helping out with the kids and maintaining the household and running errands, then your stations for productivity are going to look very different from mine, where I need to just sit in front of a laptop. Number 6 is clarity. Plan for clarity in your space. This is something that you've probably never even thought of before. I imagine of all the things that I've mentioned, this is probably the one that would for sure fall off the list, but it really is so important because your space is your sanctuary. When you have a rough day or something terrible happens, you usually want to come home and retreat and, recuperate and all of that. And it's really difficult to do that when you have no clarity inside of your space, because maybe it's too chaotic, or maybe it has so much clutter and stuff, or maybe your home is just in general swarming with things that are stressful to you, different stressors. A lot of people, their homes are not supportive, peaceful spaces. They are stressful spaces that they can't wait to leave. And that's the opposite of what we want. We want a space that we can't wait to get back to, not a space that we can't wait to get out of. So trying to plan for how can you reduce these stressors inside of your space? How can you find some blank space or just some calming space to really get clarity and clear your mind? Because everything that we do really boils down to how much mental clarity we have. Being able to just stop and clear your brain of all of the thoughts and all of the stress and the things that we need to do can just change your life. Like, it can change the way that you respond to every single situation. It can change the decisions that you make and the directions that you go. So it's really important that your sanctuary has space for that clarity. Even if that's on a balcony or a patio or a porch, like somewhere outside where you can just bring in some plants and enjoy the breeze. It's important that you have that space for yourself. I do occasionally have people say, why don't you throw in more splashes of color or a red wall or something into your space? But I can tell you that I do intentionally build clarity into every single space in my home, because that's something that's at the top of my personal priorities list. Number 7 is energy. I feel like this is kind of the yummy one, the one that can feel just really good and delicious if you think of it that way, because you're really getting into all 5 senses of what your space is providing for you. The textures, the colors, the vibes, like how inspiring a space is to you. And yes, a space can be inspiring to where every time you walk into that space, you just feel a little bit delighted to be in there. That's directly impacting your energy. And we draw our energy from our environments. I say that all the time. We draw our energy from our environments, and then we go out and we spend it. We spend it in our relationships. We spend it in our schedule. So it's important that you're somehow planning for how you're going to draw that energy and what types of energy are going to be the most beneficial to you. Are you somebody who struggles a lot with anxiety and feeling stressed and worrying all the time? If that's the case, then maybe you're going to want to invest a little more time into planning calmer energy, right? So where your spaces are providing the mood of calmness and relaxation and focus and clarity, like we talked about. Whereas maybe you have the opposite problem and you struggle a lot with apathy and laziness and wanting to oversleep. Maybe you need that extra boost of inspiration, and you can really bake that into your spaces and create spaces that help you to feel vivacious and alive and awake and, a little bit moodier. There are all different kinds of things that you can bake into really any space. You got a box, right? Do what you want with the box. It's going to give you what you need. So you know yourself, you know the types of energy that you need and the types of energy that you naturally bring, and you can kind of workshop that with your space to make it the most supportive space possible. And number 8 is connection. And by connection, I mean connection to yourself and the version of yourself that you're wanting to be inside of that space. It may be that you're already the version of yourself yourself that you feel like is totally optimized and that's who you're trying to be, well, your space then should reflect that. But maybe it's that you're trying to do better, to develop better habits, to be a nicer person. There are always different areas for growth that we're working on, and you can curate a space that's going to make you feel more confident as being that version of yourself. So, for example, if I'm talking about wanting to exude confidence in my profession and I want to show up as the most put together professional person in my industry, whatever that is, just an example. I'm going to feel like that version of myself more when I have a clean, streamlined, organized workspace than I am if there are just like sticky notes plastered all over the place and old coffee mugs and wadded up paper and I don't know where any of the utensils are. That gives you a little less confidence and it makes you feel less put together and less certain that you're able to answer questions when they arise. It's just like dressing the part, right? They say dress the part, dress for success, because you just automatically feel a little bit perkier and a little bit more put together and a little more confident as whatever version of yourself you're presenting as, just by the way you dress. And your space is the same way. Dress your space for the version of yourself that you need to be when you're in that space. There's really no space that you can't use this in, from your bedroom to your office to your dining room to your nursery. So let's go ahead and take a look at the big nursery reveal, and I'll show you some of the areas where we've really tried to incorporate functionality and creativity and energy and all of the different things that we talked about here today. So welcome to our new nursery/teen room. Obviously, the biggest challenge in this whole project was trying to incorporate a teen's room with a newborn nursery, right? In a way that they were both going to be able to enjoy and find functionality out of, and in a way that I was going to be able to move in and out with the baby whenever I needed to. It wasn't going to be super disruptive to Gracie, who's 14. We needed a space that was going to be able to store things like diapers and wipes and the lounger pad, as well as Gracie's clothes and some of her items, but we didn't really have a lot of extra space for a dresser, which is what most people would use as kind of a catch-all for that, without really detracting from the movability and the energy and clarity of the space. So I wanted to be sure that it still felt breezy and not overly cluttered, even with the nursery crib and Gracie's bed and kind of merging the two of those together. Obviously, we went with a little bit of a minimalist boho theme here, which I was really lucky that Gracie was super on board with. She was so excited about all of the changes and bringing in the warm tones and kind of moving away from a lot of the gray and white that we had in her room before and into more of the warmer colors. We ended up getting rid of Gracie's loft bed, and in doing so, we also lost out on the desk that was underneath the loft bed. So we needed to replace the desk. And because Gracie is a teenager and she's really into doing things on her laptop, the desk was really higher priority for us than using that space for something like a dresser and a changing table. And this desk is truly awesome. It's actually so awesome that I've been coming in here during the day while Gracie's at school with her laptop and using it for my own work. I'll show you why here in a second, but you'll notice that my laptop is currently stationed on the desk. This desk is by our sponsor for the day, FlexiSpot. So let me go show you how this bad boy works. At the very soft push of a button, it goes up high, like really high. So it can be used for sitting and standing, and you can even program these different settings to set it for whatever your height level is or whatever levels you're going to be wanting to raise it up to. It has spots to plug in your devices. You barely have to touch it, and it tells you how many inches or centimeters. Putting this desk together was easier than putting any other piece of furniture in this room together. I do a lot of stuff on my laptop. I do editing, I do Zoom calls, I watch videos, sometimes I type and work, and each of those kind of requires a different height. So whenever I have a Zoom chat, which I just had the other day, I was able to just like raise this up to where the camera of my laptop is right where I need it to be and do my Zoom chat, and then lower it back down where I could rest my arm on the table and do work. It was so easy. I didn't have to go try to find books or pillows, which I've done many times in the past, to try to prop it up on to get the right angle. And it's very sturdy when you're moving it up and down. So there's no shaking, no moving around, no wobbling of any of the legs. I'll be sure to leave a link down in the description so you can go check it out for yourself if you are in need of a desk. I highly recommend the FlexiSpot. Now, I have a holistic and clutter-free spaces guide that just got a huge facelift. It has so much good content in it. I also have a free masterclass where I go into even more detail and share my holistic clutter-free formula. I will leave the link to both of those down in the description so you can dive deeper into some of the subjects that we touched on today about creating supportive, holistic, and clutter-free spaces. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will chat with you next week, same time, same place.